to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle. We're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners. You know, talking John 6, big one, AG 7, and we get a John chapter. Kyle, your thoughts?
My thoughts? Yeah, it was a fun chapter for sure. I mean, I think it was pretty cool. There was a lot of detail in and how everything was going on. You know, like you got a real step-by-step kind of minute-by-minute description of their adventure, whereas some of the other ones, you know, they leave all that stuff out. They don't it's not like John put his right foot down and walked forward. You know, like, it would be boring as shit. But this one, it actually made sense and it was good.
They basically climb out and kill Watchers, capture girl. Yeah. You know, so it was pretty quick. So it wasn't just a 3-page chapter. He dives into some of the details that Nelson really likes.
Yeah, I think along the same lines of what Kyle was saying, I'll send to Jeff too. And it's probably stuff that we don't really got to talk about on the podcast because it's like kind of like Kyle saying, like where he puts his hands and like the feel of the climb. But this is one of the chapters, like when I was reading it, I was like, damn, did George go climb a mountain? Like, how do you write something like this?
No way.
I know.
You've seen that, man.
I know, but I'm thinking, like, how do you write something like this unless you're pulling from experience? Like, it's to me, it's one of those chapters that really like puts you like in the moment. And I'm like, yeah, he does a really good job of writing it. And maybe it's because it is like minute to minute more so.
I mean, he might have talked to somebody or something,
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
These people do research for the books for sure.
I'm also a big fan of the story at the end. So we got a long quote coming your way.
All right, so let's get into it. So the crows are down at the bottom of a mountain or along a mountain.
So, yeah, well, real quick, where do we leave John, right? So it's kind of a big jump from where we left him last.
He's at the fist, right?
John volunteered to leave.
Yes, so very at the end, Corin's like, we should range out. And he's like, okay, pick your men. And he's like, I want Jon Snow. And John's like, yep, I'm in. I want to go. So that's kind of where it ended. It was like Corin picked John after just meeting him. And then, yeah, like John was all fired up about it. And then here we are. So now they're like in the middle of this thing. It seems like it's been a decent amount of time later. At one point, John says like it's at least long enough that he's grown some sort of mustache because his mustache is frosting up at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I'd say like at least 2 or 3 weeks.
mean, it says that they got from the fist to the swirling pass. So like, I don't know on a map, like how far that is. But
well, they definitely talked about sleeping together and stuff like, like they got used to sleeping on the rocks together, huddled up. So, I mean, it's definitely been at least a few nights, and I'm sure it's more than that. That was just kind of a...
To be honest, I didn't realize that some of these mountain ranges are actually labeled on the map. I knew the Frost Fangs, like the giant, all the mountains were labeled. They might not be on your map. I'm talking about on like giant map. They might be though. Yep. But I mean, yeah. So I'll put a picture of this in the YouTube video in the Discord. I don't have it for you guys ready, but the Fist of the First Man isn't close. It's like pretty much maybe as far from Craster's like from the Fist, just the other way. And not quite that far, but yeah, so they're out there. And and the other thing is we didn't really know who was going except for Corin and John. And here, pretty early on in this chapter, we figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get the list. So the group is together. We'll learn them as they go. And they spot a fire up about 2,000 feet up, they said, which is pretty fucking high.
Yeah. Half a mile front, 2,000 up.
And that's very high up. Like, that's incredibly high.
So little tedious by me, but like, how far is a mile in feet?
5,280 feet.
So like he said half a mile and then 2,000 feet. Like
half a mile ahead.
I got you understand why change units when it's like also about half a mile up.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess it's a little less than half a mile, but whatever. Yeah.
What? Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I just thought when I read that I was like, wait, isn't 2,000 feet about
usually
half a mile?
When you talk elevation though, you don't talk about miles.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, you can see it. Maybe you can see a distance out easier than up. But
yep. So we get the first mention of a new guy. Not a new guy, but I guess one of the guys who came with Corin.
Squire is a new guy. Squire
Dalbridge, who is the oldest of them. But they call him Squire even though he's old because he was a squire for a king in his days. And
the question is, how did he end up here? Right.
And I never knew which king, but I looked it up and it's Jaehaerys II, who I know nothing about. So like that's a king who basically takes place long enough after the Dunk and Egg books that we don't really hear about him. And
this guy's gonna be old as shit.
I think he's after Dunk and Egg and before Robert. He's got to be. Or else Squire Dalbridge can't be.
He's got to be before Robert. What are we talking about?
I'm just saying he can't be before Dunk and Egg or Squire Dalbridge is super, super old.
Yeah.
So he's basically like in that range where we don't really know much of like the histories of after Dunk and Egg before this book. So I don't think it's a spoiler to say that. I never knew it on any of my read-throughs. I don't think it really matters.
All right. So they spot the fire. They're assuming that maybe 2 people are up there. We have a quick little run through about fire and how it's, life in the cold, but in this kind of climate of it's also your death, being able to be spotted and whatnot.
Yeah, and the one interesting thing is they like wonder what's Mance looking for? Like,
yeah, who's he on the watch out for?
He should not be expecting them. Like, theoretically, the wildlings don't know they're at the fist, right? So this kind of comes up later when John like captures them and starts questioning that girl. He asks her like, "Who are you watching for?" And she says, "The words are you and others." We'll get to it, but like you and others is like an interesting way to say that, right?
Right. It is definitely an interesting way. I don't think it's that crazy that they could see them at the Fist of the First Men. If they're this high up, if they get to a spot where they're high enough and they could just see light from the Fist of the First Men
definitely
direction.
had an argument about this, I think, in the last John, is like how far you can be seen from there. Because we were talking more about how far could Vengeance see the Fist of the First Men from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they said that the point of this ranging was to go find Benjen, and we got this argument. I'm like, how is sitting here finding Benjen? And I think some of you guys were saying like, well, as long as they're like burning torches like on top of a mountain, Benjen will be able to see them from far away. I don't know how far away you'd be able to see this from. I feel like, especially if you're in the mountains, John says it's been like several mountain ranges, right? So there's got to be other mountains in the way.
That's what I'm saying. If they're at the closest mountain range, if there's one scout that's
if they're sending people scouting too,
it's close.
Yeah.
Well, this is half a mile from where they are now, which is maybe like a week or so's walk. Like, I mean, that could be multiple miles, right? From the Fist.
Yeah, for sure.
So
like
a person can see a candle flame without obstruction 1.6 miles away. So
okay, I mean a candle flame's not a lot either. Like you can probably see a fire from 10 times.
I'd like to see your source on that one.
Healthline.com.
Yeah.
I just asked Tom.
We asked Tom. Yeah.
I asked Tom. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
All right. So yeah, but they're talking about this fire. One of the other new guys, Eben, says that like if Mance knew that they had a fire, he'd flay them. Like this is a horrible plan. Like this is you don't do like you're saying you don't do that here. And John mentions that they hadn't. Like Corden hadn't let them have a fire since they left the Fist.
Yeah, they've been cuddling up, which is smart. You need to. Obviously, you're sleeping and you're gonna get fucking seen. Isn't that what Tyrion did in the Mountain Clans? Like, they sat down, started a fire, like sat by a tree. And they got surrounded in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Not that they probably weren't being watched anyway, but
yeah, strange things. Another thing I noted throughout this chapter is John. We always mention it because sometimes like one of the siblings thinks of the other siblings, but normally it's like all of them at once and they'll leave one off. I think John thinks of everyone throughout the chapter here except Sansa, but he does them one at a time.
Yeah. John, Arya, or Rob, Arya,
Bran for climbing.
I don't remember Rickon.
Maybe not Rickon. But yeah, he definitely mentions multiple of his siblings like one off. So I don't know. I just wanted to like think about it and try and tick them off as we go. Here he just says cuddling with his brothers, doesn't name any in particular.
Yeah. So they all pretty much are like, all right, let's take him out. We got to take him out. Stone Snake, which is a pretty cool name.
Yep.
Kind of gives you the lead in that he's a great climber. He volunteers, obviously, because he's the best climber. And John volunteers because I don't know why.
Because he's trying to prove his worth, man. This is this is his time to shine. He wanted to be a ranger. He's getting his ranging. He better step up, right?
One thing I think is weird is, and maybe I'm overthinking it, Corrin says 2 here. Isn't Corrin supposed to be one of the most seasoned rangers ever? How, maybe this watch just has 3, most of them has 2, but you have to assume he's been in a similar situation where he's like found a range of a scouting party before and knows that there's...
You think it's common wildling thing that they have a sleeper, a fireman, and a watchman?
I just mean like at the wall, I doubt that they send out like rangings of 2 and then of 3. Like I bet you it's like normally the same size.
I mean, it might be based off of availability too. And
I guess, but it seems like, and the wildlings have a lot of availability right now. So maybe that's why there's an extra guy. But I don't know. I feel like it's weird that Corrin got this wrong.
I don't think it is.
I mean, I think he pretty much said like in absolute, like you obviously can't see. He's like, oh, there's 2 guys up there. Like there could have been 5 guys up there. Like what would they have done then?
Send all 5 of them, tie up the horses, go. All of them go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, how would they have? They wouldn't know until they actually got up there and climbed. So,
I'm just saying the only reason they send 2 people is because Corrin. The way I take it is the reason they only send 2 is because Corrin's pretty confident there's only 2. So more than 2 isn't right.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you, and I'm agreeing with you that it was stupid that he assumed, because it could have been a small camp. It could have been like.
And again, I don't know if it's worth going into. I thought just one of those things. Yeah.
But all right, so Corin's like, all right, you guys head up. We'll stay here. Ghost stays too because he's too easily seen along the black. I guess
he was gonna be able to climb that shit anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, the white fur and the moonlight is too
get
noticeable.
Up there, doesn't it?
They go up an easier way.
Yeah. Well, the first bit, so we'll get into it, but so
you could have just sent Ghost up the easy way.
No, they didn't.
And acted like he was a wild animal. I mean, they would have been like, "Oh, there's a white direwolf here. That's the watch."
That's probably true. They don't know that's wild. They don't know that's Night's Watch.
All right, so they start climbing, and I didn't really write too much about it. John's kind of explaining the horrors of the Frost Fangs.
The overview is they don't really start climbing right away. They're still on a trail. It's just a very dangerous trail, narrow trail. Like you have to shimmy across it. Dark. There's big gaps.
Loose rocks. Yeah. Ruts everywhere. Crevices. Yeah. I mean, it's treacherous for sure. It's mountain trail, but it's not climbing.
Yeah. And again, this is where we're getting Stone Snake is a fucking god at this. Like he knows exactly what he's doing.
And then I just have that he talks about, like, it's not all bad. Like, there's actually seen some really cool shit here, too.
He'd seen sunlight flashing on icy thin waterfalls as they plunged over the lips of sheerstone cliffs, and a mountain meadow full of autumn wildflowers, blue cold snaps, and bright scarlet frost fires, and stands of piper's grass in russet and gold. He had peered down ravines so deep and black they seemed certain to end in some hell, and he had ridden his Garen over a wind-eaten bridge of natural stone with nothing but sky to either side. Eagles nested in the heights and came down to hunt the valleys, circling effortlessly on great blue-gray wings that seemed almost part of the sky. Once he had watched a shadow cat stalk a ram flowing down the mountainside like liquid smoke until it was ready to pounce. Now it's our turn to pounce.
Yeah, so then he kind of relates that to what they're doing now. I just think that, again, I think this is a cool chapter for like the imagery of it. It's a cool
definitely mentally stimulating, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how you say that, but there's a lot of world building.
It's weird because world building is normally not like it's not like about nature, at least the way I think of
Scenario building or scene building.
No, I agree. I agree that this is probably what you would consider world building. I'm just thinking most of the time it's not. This feels different than most of the time.
It's not anything I expected for this terrain, for being as cold as it is, and from what we've heard, like then you just have like fields of flowers and shit. Like that seems pretty. I mean, maybe wildflowers. Maybe all those are like super cold flowers, but it doesn't seem like even where they were at the Fist of First Men, like much flowers and shit. Like if it wasn't an evergreen tree, it wasn't surviving type thing.
Yeah.
Well, they were in the woods too, which chokes out a lot of that. I think there's more clearings once the trees kind of die away.
It's more mountain, yeah, a lot of mountains and valleys and stuff, right?
But I just thought it would be too cold, but so they do start to climb here then, right? They
eventually, yeah. This is really talking about the mustache.
Yeah.
He mentions that he has long claw, but it's not really the weapon that he should be using here, right? Which is
he doesn't know if he's going to have enough room to use it.
This gives me a callback to the very first chapter ever, right? POV Will mentions something about this. His commander has like the wrong horse and I think the wrong sword, right? Like they're like crawling through bushes.
He's got an actual long sword, right?
And they're using dirks, I think, right? So John mentions here, I have the long sword, but I'm going to use a dirk. But I'm going to call out that before he jumps out, he pulls the longsword. But I guess if he can pull the longsword.
Well, I mean, he must know that he has room then, like once he gets up there.
Yeah, if you can pull it, I guess pull it. But yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. I noted that.
Yeah.
This is where we get Stone Snake's advice. Well, he told him it earlier, but he said, the mountain is your mother. Cling to her, press your face up against her teats, and she won't drop you.
Yep. John had joked that he never knew his mother, but he didn't expect to find her in the Frost Fangs.
Yeah, that was funny.
Pretty funny.
I can imagine like Stone Snake just like ignoring him too. Like John thought he was gonna get a little chuckle, and like just nothing. Yeah, the only thing I have is John's little saying to himself as he climbs. One step and then another.
Yeah, that's when the actual climb starts, right?
Yeah, which I think is coming here soon. Like
no, that's right there. Yep, he takes off his gloves. So they mentioned they brought rope and like a little felt tip hammer. So yeah, they start doing the actual climb. And what's like the strat here? I guess this is like what people do when they actually climb. I've never been actually rock climbing, so I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, they tie the rope to each other, so one goes up to the end of the rope essentially, and then the other one climbs ahead, or he'll climb up to him. I think in this case, because John's obviously the less seasoned climber.
Yep.
So he'll climb up to the first one, and then the first one moves back up. And that way somebody's always kind of static on the mountain to at least try and catch you if you fall.
The other thing maybe you didn't catch it, is he's not once Stone Snake gets to his spot, he takes his rope off and puts it on a rock, right? So that's why the second time he has to pull out the hammer and nail the spike is because when John's climbing, he's not actually holding the rope on himself. He's putting it onto the spike or whatever. So if John does fall, he will get caught.
He should be anchored. Yeah, I think that's how you like. I think nowadays you can kind of hit a spot as you climb so that you're anchored in. Yeah. Checkpoint. But they obviously don't have this much.
It's just these dudes are nuts.
Yeah, and what I was thinking is, in Dark Knight Rises when Batman falls out of the pit when he has the rope tied to him and then the rope catches him, that looks fucking like you die from that, right?
I mean, I think he should have snapped a vertebrae like every time.
What are you talking about?
The Dark Knight Rises when he tries to climb out of the...
And he has the rope and he falls and the rope catches him. But that whiplash, that would snap your back or your neck. Especially if he just had suffered a back injury too.
Isn't that how Gwen died in the second Spider-Man?
Well, I think she hits her head. He doesn't quite catch her.
So I don't think Stone Snake ever takes a rope off himself. I think he just wraps it around other things. For the record.
Well, John says he took it and put it back on himself. Again, it doesn't matter. It amounts to the same thing. But I'm assuming that as John's climbing, he's wrapping the ropes around whatever it is, so it's less and less slack, so that Batman thing doesn't happen. But I'm not sure. I've never been climbing, but I guess that's what I would want somebody to do if I was John here. Is keep the slack as little as you can, so if I do fall,
so I don't
break
snap my back.
Yeah.
So this is where he does think of Bran as he was the climber, and wishes he had a tenth of his courage. And I like to climb. I like to get suited up and do the little rock climbing courses and shit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it gets a little fucking, and it's a super controlled setting, right? I can only imagine if it wasn't a controlled setting, the nerves and the heart rate and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, I like climbing mountains, but I don't do this type. I do maybe some of the first type where he's walking up but I do that during the daytime. Yeah. Right. Well, so me and my brother climbed a mountain that was really fucking high, 6,000 feet or something like that. And it literally took all day, and I almost fucking died. My brother literally thought I was gonna have a heart attack.
Nor food.
But that was awesome, and it got fucking hard towards the end, and the way down was harder. Going down a really steep slope that's all rocks, not easy, but it's cool. So maybe that's why I was in the chapter 2, it reminded me of that. But
what about those people that fucking sleep? They nail in a thing and then they hang in a hammock kind of on the side of a cliff.
What if you had a bad dream? Yeah, what if you had a bad dream?
Yeah, I roll around way too much. They'd find me at the bottom of the fucking mountain.
Terrible idea. You're nuts if you do that.
So during the climb, John does lose his thumbnail as well. He's leaving blood stains on the rocks.
Yeah. So then leaving a track.
So how do you guys picture this thing working? Right. So what I see is they're not up. They don't climb to the top. He says they climb 2/3 up and there's a cleft in the rock. So I'm thinking there's a small gap, right? Where there's a fissure in the rock.
Yeah. I kind of think of it as Pride Rock in The Lion King.
I don't think so at all. I think they're stuck between two pieces of rock because they have to crawl 300 yards.
Yeah. They're it's on a ledge or you said, a fissure.
A thick fissure in the middle of the mountain. They climb into it and then crawl 300 yards. They don't waddle or squat walk. They crawl it. And I don't think you would crawl it if you could stand. So I'm guessing they're in a really narrow gap here. Which, again, I never really tried to picture it
I'm thinking of more or less where these wildlings set up their watch is kind of where Rafiki held Simba.
Yes, I think that's true. But I think they have to crawl through a long little fissure to get to there. But yeah, so then they get
I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, so they get to where these wildlings are, and like you said, they're basically they got a rock wall to their back, which John and Stone Snake are now kind of crawling on top of, and the vast blackness out in front of them. And John basically gives us the lowdown of where they're all situated.
Isn't it kind of stupid because we know that when Davos sailed the ship through Storm's End, that if you're a watchman, maybe the watchman's not right by the fire, but super dark out, then you have the fire, you're blinding yourself with the light.
I think how much could you really see anyway?
Yeah, I mean, you're so high.
I guess you're hoping that if somebody does come, they have a light, and then at that point it doesn't matter if you're near a light or yeah. That's the only thing I can think of.
I was gonna say, and the others, right?
Looking for blue eyes.
I don't even know if it's that. I think it's just they know that fire defeats them.
Yeah, so keep that ready. That makes sense. I didn't think about that.
I didn't either. So 3 wildlings are there. One's asleep, one's by the fire, and one's out on watch.
Yep.
and they kind of signal to each other like who's responsible for who.
So Snowsnake points to the one with the horn, who's the one on watch.
Yep.
And John.
So he takes the point pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm gonna do the important shit. I mean, both are important, but the horn can't let him blow it.
Which is like the one thing Corn said before they went.
Yeah.
It was like there's gonna be two, and the next guy somebody said one's gonna have a horn, and Corn's like, and he cannot blow it. So that's kind of like the mission here. So yeah, John takes the other one that's awake, and they go.
It all seemed to happen in a heartbeat. Afterward, John could admire the courage of the wildling who reached first for his horn instead of his blade. He got it to his lips, but before he could sound it, Stone Snake knocked the horn aside with a swipe of his short sword. John's man leapt to his feet, thrusting at his face with the burning brand. He could feel the heat of the flame as he flinched back. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the sleeper stirring, and knew he must finish his man quick. When the brand swung again, he bowled into it, swinging the bastard sword with both hands. The Valerian steel sheared through leather, fur, wool, and flesh, but when the wildling fell, he twisted, ripping the sword from John's grasp. On the ground, the sleeper sat up beneath his furs. John slid his dirk free, grabbing the man by the hair and jamming the point of the knife up under his chin as he reached for his. No, her. His hand froze. A girl.
A watcher. A wildling. Finish her.
John could see fear and fire in her eyes. Blood ran down her white throat from where the point of the dirk pricked her. One thrust and it's done, he told himself. He was so close he could smell onion on her breath. She is no older than I am. Something about her made him think of Arya, though they looked nothing at all alike.
There's your Arya thing.
Yep,
And then also notice that the first thing this dude does is grab something on fire and attacks him.
Yeah,
with it.
why was he getting a branding ready? Like, what the fuck was he
It's
gonna...
not a branding, it's a torch.
Torch. I think Kyle's suggesting that he's not sure John isn't another here. Is that what you're saying? I think that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. I never thought about that either, but it makes total sense. It also makes sense why this guy would go for his horn if he's like, what the fuck am I going to do anyway? You know what I mean? I'm not near the fire. Like,
yeah, true. But, and then what you just said that just reminded me of this. So, and this also kind of immediately counteracts Theon's whole speech last chapter about, you know, what are you going to do if a wolf comes up the thing and he's on you in a second? You're not going to blow your fucking horn.
Yeah.
First thing this dude tries to blow his horn.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
I mean,
So the Greyjoy men are just pussies. He does think of Robb before this thing too. Did Robb feel this way before his first battle?
That's right. Once
when
they
he
pick
knows
the men,
he needs to kill this guy.
yeah.
Yeah, they pick the men. He thinks it feels weird. Like, so this is John's first kill, right? This is. Did we? I don't know if we gave John. We might have given John a frag for.
When they took
when
Bran.
he killed. Well, he killed the
Oh
other.
no, he wasn't there, was he?
No, it was with the, like, Nelson
killed the
said, when
other
he killed
with
the
the flame.
zombies.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Let me
what we
see.
did. You have the
Yeah, we
frag count.
gave Jon Snow one for the white, so this will be his 2.
Gotcha.
But it's his first man, right? Or first person.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know. It is, I want to say it wouldn't be any stranger to kill a woman. Because, like, I think it's really fucking strange to kill a person in general. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I have a hard time equating that minor difference between something that I'm so far from already, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. He didn't hesitate. He got his ass.
Hold on, let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit. What if one of those situations where there's a train coming, man tied to this track, woman tied to that track, you have the lever in front of you, it's up to you. One of them has to die, right?
It's not fair.
It's similar though. There's like philosophical debates that this is like, you know what I mean? There's some.
You save the girl so that she can have a child.
I mean, most people would just save the girl. I don't know if you need a reason to it. If you need, yeah maybe, but
I don't.
Like women and children for sometimes are.
I mean, is it a random lady or is it your brother?
Random,
you know.
two
Well, if
strangers.
it's one for
Two random
one,
people.
right? If it's one or one, which way is the lever already facing? I don't know that I'd pull any lever, you know?
So that's actually part of the philosophical debate because then you're getting involved. If you just don't get it, yeah. So I mean, without getting too deep down it, I don't know. You know what I mean. If you don't do anything, they both die. How about that?
Do the Batman. Pop the lever. Try and save both of them. You send Gordon to one and you to the other.
The real question, the trolley problem.
Trolley problem.
The trolley problem is actually, it's like 5 people on one track, one person on another. Train's heading at 5.
And you have to move
pull
it.
the lever to only kill 1 instead of the 5.
That's different.
And that is where you say, yeah, I mean, you have to, I guess, right? Like,
you know what I'm saying. There's most of the time people say there's a
I know what you're
difference.
saying, yeah, because it evolves, and it's like the whole AI thing. It's like, do you program the car to protect the driver
I
or
don't
the people on the road?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about more like to the chapter. Like there is like people like you said. I don't know. It's the same killing a man and woman. I know what you're saying, but there is always like a thing like, oh, if you're on a crashing parachute, women and children get the parachutes first, or if you're on a crashing plane, women and children get the parachutes first, right? Like that, I don't know. I mean,
that's the Titanic, right? Women and children on lifeboats.
Exactly. Yeah, all of it. Like, I don't know. It's different.
But that's a little different, though. I feel like you're not trying to kill an enemy.
This is
like,
a goofy
like the first thing Stone says to him is like, man, she was reaching for that axe, that giant axe right there.
Like if I was under attack and someone was trying to kill me, I would have a way easier time physically defending myself if it was a man. Especially if it was lethal, right? Like in a lethal situation.
If a woman's trying to kill you, you're just gonna let her try and kill you, or you're gonna think twice about it. That's the stupidest thing ever. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I think my instinct is not as quick to defend myself.
You're a fucking idiot. Then you deserve to die. I hope she kills you. I hope she kills you.
All right. So where are we at?
You're gonna not put in my reaction to your stupidest comment.
I'll leave it in.
You better, because that was fucking idiotic.
I think you're misjudging yourself.
She's trying to kill you.
You've been conditioned so much in your life to not hit a woman that it doesn't matter.
A woman's never tried to kill me before.
It doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter the situation. I think that in the back of your head, that would be in there somewhere.
You're a fool.
It's all hypotheticals. We're down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you're hypothetically thinking like a fool. You're hypothetically thinking like a fool. This is why it's so hard
to get off topic with you guys. You just make me
because you hypothetically think like a fool. If someone's trying to kill you, you're gonna defend yourself, whether it's a fucking tiger, a pregnant lady,
100%.
Or
I'm saying I'm slower too. There, like in the back of my head, there's gonna be something like, you can't hit her. She's a girl. Like that. It's gonna impact my reaction time.
How much are you gonna flinch? If you flinch too much, you're fucking dead.
I know, and I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
You're stupid.
Thinking, if you have that much time to think about it,
I don't think it's a thought. I think that's fucking ingrained in a lot of people. It's like, you don't hit girls.
Yeah, you don't hit a girl for no fucking reason. If she has a gun, like you said, she was trying to kill you. That's a big difference. If a girl's just trying to punch you, you fucking swat the punch away and you step back and be like, look, I'm not punching you. But you said she was going to kill you and you're going to think about whether you should defend yourself or not. That is idiotic.
I guarantee you there's times where a woman is like, I'm going to fucking kill you. She's running at somebody, like hitting them as hard as you can. And they're just like, get the fuck off me.
If a man was doing
that to them, they would be swinging back. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong. I wouldn't.
If I came at you and I was like, I'm going to fucking kill you, Kyle, I was swinging at you as hard as I could, you would not try and stop me? And then if Erica did that, you would hit her back too?
I'd probably try and peace out.
That's a different hypothetical story.
No, it's not.
You said with a weapon. Dude, she's not going to kill you with her bare hands. Shut the fuck up.
You don't know that. Ronda Rousey could kill the fuck out of you with her bare hands.
Ronda Rousey could get kicked in the back.
It exists. It is real.
It does exist. I know a guy that was...
His name's Johnny Depp. Some of this conversation 100% has to be out.
That's why I'm trying to reel it back in.
I love that Nelson just changed from a lethal weapon to she's trying to murder you with her bare hands, and that's how he's fucking
somewhere along the spectrum of the weakest woman in the world to the strongest woman in the world. A decent percentage of women could kill you with their bare hands, Jeff. Bet on that. God.
Yeah, what's the odds that you're running into her? And if she could kill me with her bare hands, I'm going to defend myself with a weapon if I had to. Because you know what I'm saying. Yes, but you said it completely wrong.
All right, so John breezes. It's a lady. Oh no. So anyway, why does she remind him of Arya? You know.
I think because she's like she's a fighter. Yeah, like she's a spear wife type thing.
Yeah. Like he's never seen her fight, but she's on a Sansa would not be out here. Just because that's the tomboy girl
all of
he
these
knows.
People are out here, right? Like I don't feel like any of them lived a good prince queen life in the wildlings, right?
To your point, I think a lot of the wildling women would remind him of Arya.
Yes,
100% of the ones that we know were fighters.
Yes, but correct. John, this is the first one John met, and what I'm saying is John probably hasn't met many other girls like Arya. Right, so in his mind, that's the tomboy, and then when he sees his first other tomboy, he's like, "Wow, you're like Arya." Like to Jeff's point, I think if John would have ever met Osha, he'd be like, "Wow, you're like Arya." You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yep.
John's like, can't do it. Flinches, freezes, and he's like, "You're my captain."
Yeah, yield. Yeah. She's like, "Fuck yeah, fine, I'll do that."
Stone Stick's like, "Fuck this, we shouldn't do that."
Well, he's like, Korn's going to be pissed, is the first thing.
Well, yeah, Korn.
Yeah.
Well, he never
He
said
didn't
not
say
to
anything.
do
There
this.
was nothing about taking a capture. And to this point, like they weren't worried about intel. Like they're finding out intel. Like they just keep going. They're gonna figure out what they learned from Egret.
So weird thing here.
Egret didn't give them anything, but that there's a ton of them sitting through the pass.
I'm gonna ask some questions about the last John chapter. Like when Korn showed up, what did he tell Mormont? Kyle, do you remember? If not, we'll skip past it.
Oh, they had some skirmishes on the way
Yep.
to the Fist.
Yep, and then he had some information. That's why he wants to go into the Frostfangs, right?
Well, they're all
Yeah,
gathering
Mance
in the
is-
Frostfangs.
and
Mance is looking for
Mance is
something
looking
in the
for something.
Frostfangs.
Yeah.
But Korn got this information because he had Eben, who is now with them. Right, Eben is one of the guys down there. Again, we only know this because Korn said Eben last chapter. If you remember the names, Eben is with them. Korn says Eben tortured him, and we found out that they're looking for something. And he's like, we don't think he was telling us the truth. Eben thinks he was lying. But here Stone says like, she's not going to say shit. Like, you just you probably 2 months ago tortured somebody and got information, like a wildling, and got information out of it. So like, I get that, yes, and she does like stop talking real quick once he starts asking like kind of important questions. But like,
and they don't really torture. They never get into torturing her. Like it might be different, but
I don't think John would be cool with that anyway because he's not cool.
Sure.
With
Well, let's just say Korn came up and he's like, all right, fuck it, let's torture her. Like they're too close now that they can't have her screaming bloody murder like of being tortured.
Put a gag in. I don't know. I think they could figure something.
Well, that's
out.
why they want to kill her too, though. Is exactly to Jeff's point.
Yeah, you can't be
Because
screaming.
all it's going to take is.
I mean, I don't understand what didn't stop her from just like maybe she's got a chance to live and she kind of sees a glimmer of hope. Why did like if she doesn't care like the guy that was going to blow the horn, like just scream really quick, like give your loudest scream.
Yeah, you got to think like at the top of a mountain, the scream goes pretty far. I mean,
far enough to the next watchman.
How much further than a horn though, Kyle? Like how much?
I don't
less
think it's
far
going
than
anywhere.
A horn? Less far than a horn?
I mean,
think
the
you're
one
gonna
thing
lose
is
that
it's
in the
super
night.
windy. It's super windy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's windy, but you get the echo. It should be echoing off
It-
mountains.
and like just like night noises and stuff like that. There's cats, big cats. They got to be screaming all the time.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard any of them? They sound like fucking banshees. Some of them.
Might just sound like
I
a
mean,
person scream.
it's one of those things. I don't think a scream would have been enough. A horn blast is a horn blast.
Gotcha.
So John starts interrogating her, but he actually just gives her all the information.
He
Like, what the fuck are
dialogues
you
on her,
doing,
yeah.
dude? Like his whole government.
So
I'm Jon Snow.
She does give her name.
son of Ned.
Egret.
She does say Egret. Yeah, Egret.
Egret.
The first thing she says is burn the dead. Like she doesn't even fuck around with them at all.
Yes,
She's like, you should
better
burn them too.
Immediately.
So she recognizes that he has a bastard name. Well, she says evil name, and
She says yeah.
that's what gets him to admit. Right, this is when he starts giving information. I'm the son of Ned Stark, and that's when Stone takes like, they're the one that's supposed to be talking. Shut the fuck up.
I don't know why she said evil name. It's kind of a good question because like they have bastards and wildlings, right? Like they're.
I mean, they have to have bastards, but do they name them different? I don't know. She has to know that there's some meaning to it, or maybe she just doesn't like snow because snow fucking kills people in the north. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. But all right, so then Stone Snake gets on to like asking her some questions too.
He asked her one or two, but I think John takes over again at some point.
He asked her two, and she answered both of his, and then John takes over and she shuts up. So he asked her, "What are you looking for?" And she's like, "You and others." We talked about that, and then he says like, "How many of you are there?" And she's like, "Hundreds of thousands."
More than you ever, hundreds and thousands, more
Hundreds
than you've
and
ever seen.
thousands. Crow.
And John thinks that she doesn't even know how many. She just knows there's a fuck ton.
And by the way, they didn't burn the bodies; they just tossed them over the cliff.
Yeah, because Stone Snake says there are other ways the mountain cats will get them.
Well, yeah, because it would have made a bigger fire. Well, that was what Stone Snake was worried was you have to make a bigger fire to burn them, and she's just trying to get us to alert the others.
Yeah, so she shuts up real quick. And so John asks about why they're in the Frost Fangs. Are you going to attack the wall? And have you seen my Uncle Benjen? He's holding out hope for the guy.
Yep, a bunch of silence.
And then they start hearing a rustle, and Shadowcats show up very quickly to eat the dead.
Yeah, and John's scared at first. She tells him not to worry. She lets him know what's going on.
Which kind of confuses me. She's like, burn them, but if you don't, the cats will eat them, and it's not a big deal anyway.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's kind of disrespectful. I mean, not that burning's not, but like you wouldn't want your body eaten by Shadowcats, right?
Like at this point, do we
I don't
know
care.
that they like all we know is that two dead men turned, right? So, like, can two skeletons turn?
No.
Yeah,
Because she later on she even said something. Somebody said something about cutting off its head would have ended it pretty much. Cutting off her head. We can get there.
It would have ended.
But she's like, I don't want to turn into one of them, but you're cutting off my head, so that won't do it.
Well, I mean, we'll get there. But I don't think that's how it goes.
Yeah, because the one guy didn't have a hand, but I guess a head might be different. But John asks if the two guys that they killed were kin.
Yeah, that's where I have the quote starting.
All right.
Were they your kin?
He asked her quietly.
The two we killed?
No more than you are.
Me?
He frowned.
What do you mean?
You said you were the bastard of Winterfell.
I am.
Who was your mother?
Some woman. Most of them are.
Someone had said that to him once. He did not remember who. She smiled again, a flash of white teeth.
And she never sung you the song of the Winter Rose?
I never knew my mother, or any such song.
Bale the Bard made it,
said Egret.
He was king beyond the wall, a long time back. All the free folk know his songs, but might be you don't sing them in the South.
Winterfell's not in the South.
John objected.
Yes, it is. Everything below the wall is south to us.
He had never thought of it that way.
I suppose it's all in where you're standing.
Aye, it always is.
Tell me.
John urged her. It would be hours before Corin came up, and her story would help keep him awake.
I want to hear this tale of yours.
Might be you won't like it much.
I'll hear it all the same.
Brave Black Crow.
She mocked.
Well, long before he was king over the free folk, Bale was great raider.
Stone Snake gave a snort. A murderer, robber, and raper is what you mean.
It's only where you're standing too. The Stark in Winterfell wanted Bale's head, but never could take him, and the taste of failure galled him. One day in his bitterness, he called Bale a craven who preyed only on the weak. When word of that got back, Bale vowed to teach the Lord a lesson. So he scaled the wall, skipped down the King's Road, and walked into Winterfell one winter's night with harp in hand, naming himself Sigurek of Skagos. Sigurek means deceiver in the old tongue that the first men spoke, and the giants still speak. North or south, singers always find a ready welcome, so Bale ate at Lord Stark's own table, and played for the Lord in his high seat until half the night was gone. The old songs he played, and new ones he'd made himself, and he played and sang so well that when he was done, the Lord offered to let him name his own reward. All I ask for a flower, Bale answered, the fairest flower that blooms in the gardens of Winterfell. Now, as it happens, the winter roses had only then come into bloom, and no flowers so rare nor precious. So the Stark sent to his glass gardens and commanded that the most beautiful of the winter roses be plucked for the singer's payment. And so it was done. But when morning come, the singer had vanished. And so had Lord Brandon's maiden daughter. Her bed they found empty, but for the pale blue rose that Bale had left on the pillow where her head had lain.
John had never heard this tale before.
Which Brandon was this supposed to be? Brandon the Builder lived in the Age of Heroes, thousands of years before Bale. There was Brandon the Burner and his father, Brandon the Shipwright, but...
This was Brandon the Daughterless. Would you hear the tale or no?
He scowled.
Go on.
Lord Brandon had no other children. At his behest, the Black Crows flew forth from their castles in the hundreds, but nowhere could they find any sign of Bale or this maid. For most a year they searched, till the Lord had lost heart and took to his bed, and it seemed as though the line of Starks was at its end. But one night, as he lay waiting to die, Lord Brandon heard a child's cry. He followed the sound and found his daughter back in her bedchamber, asleep with a babe at her breast.
Bale had brought her back.
No, they had been in Winterfell all the time, hiding with the dead beneath the castle. The maid loved Bale, so dearly she bore him a son, the song says. Though, if truth be told, all the maids loved Bale in them songs he wrote. Be that as it may, what's certain is that Bale left the child in payment for the rose he'd plucked unasked, and that the boy grew up to be the next Lord Stark. So there it is. You have Bale's blood in you. Same as me.
It never happened.
She shrugged.
Might be it did, might be it didn't. It is a good song, though. My mother used to sing it to me. She was a woman too, Jon Snow, like yours.
She rubbed her throat where his dark had cut her.
The song ends when they find the babe, but there's a darker end to the story. 30 years later, when Bale was king beyond the wall and led the free folk south, it was young Lord Stark who met him at the frozen ford and killed him. For Bale would not harm his own son when they met sword to sword.
So the son slew the father instead.
Aye, but the gods hate kinslayers, even when they kill unknowing. When Lord Stark returned from battle and his mother saw Bale's head upon his spear, she threw herself from a tower in her grief. Her son did not long outlive her. One of his lords peeled the skin off him and wore him for a cloak.
All right, that's
Quite the story.
cool story. So we have heard of Bale before. I think there was a time when Mormont was basically rattling through a bunch of kings to John, basically saying like, hey, Mance isn't the first one to do this. Like we've heard of, like there's been a few before, and he rattles off several of them.
I do remember Bale the Bard. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Yeah, I think this is an awesome story. Again, like
cool story.
Feels like a little old nanny. Probably a little truth, a little lie.
Definitely the old nan of the wildlings.
Yeah.
Fucking sings this song by the fire every night.
It's also weird, like kind of what you just said, Jeff. Like they call this song. She's like, my mom used to sing it to me every night, and then she tells a story. Like that's not a song.
I didn't think she was about to sing a song.
I didn't either, but because even John, when she says that, John says, "Tell me your tale." Like John doesn't expect a song; he expects a story.
Give the story. It was written as a song. Tell it. You're not gonna go read song
if
lyrics.
It's a long ballad,
weird.
and somebody says, "Tell me what it was," and it was like an event. There's a story.
I'm just kidding. I'm just being devil's advocate. All right. So Kyle, any other comments on the story or your girl Egret?
I mean, I'm not buying it. I feel like any of this would have had to have come up. Ned cares too much about his history, in my opinion.
Yeah, this sounds pretty dishonorable, though.
I wouldn't disagree with what you're saying, Kyle. Like, we know that we got all these guys in the crypts down there. Like, theoretically, like if John gets back to Winterfell, he'd be able to go down, look in the crypts, and find
Brandon the Daughterless.
Brandon the Daughterless and Bale's son.
I don't think Brandon the Daughterless is his name.
Well, yeah, that's what it was her mocking thing. But like, you know what we mean. Like, if that person existed, he should have a statue down there, and so should his Bale's son.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I mean, there's obviously two Starks that were king back then, or whatever, lord. So there's gonna be corpses there, right?
You're saying that. Well, no,
he's not going to know who this Brandon is because she gave him no name, and he went through like 4 of them right here that were named Brandon. He has a brother named Brandon.
Brandon's a common Stark name.
I think he kind of knows like when the time period would be though. Like he has an idea.
And so he gets down there and he says, "Oh, it's Brand the Builder." He's not going to know if that's Brandon the Daughterless.
No, well, he knows it's not Brand the Builder because.
But the whole point of me bringing up the crypts was you're saying Ned cares about his history, and I'm saying the only real like evidence of that, like we haven't heard Ned tell anything about like we don't know Ned's mom. We know his dad because his dad had this thing, like they went south and bad shit happened. So we've been like, oh, the same thing's going to happen to you, right? So like we've heard this before. But like we don't really know much about Ned's history except for his dad. And that's basically it. I'm not saying that you're not right in the fact that they have this whole lineage down in the crypts. But I'm saying in terms of like where they keep their history and like it seems like how they spread that, it's the crypts.
I just feel like the story of this mother that threw herself from a tower would have come up in Winterfell at least once.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying because Bran, right? Like he's rattling off. I forget at one point, but Bran's like, "Oh yeah, like when he's in the crypts, he's saying, "Oh, I know this guy's story. I know this guy's story. I know this guy's story."
And even like old Nan, like, "Oh, well, Bran the Builder did this, and Bran the Shipwright." She said there was a lot of.
They do say that there's like layers down, like the layer that they're on in the crypts now, where they're building people. There's at least 2 more layers down, and one of those is blocked by stones where you can't get through it anymore. So there's been a lot of fucking kings of this. But
this isn't like. Every brand that we've mentioned is older than this brand, right? From the story.
The oldest brand we've mentioned so far is Bran the Builder, right? Because we know he built some shit a long time ago. But like Brandon, like the Shipwright and Brandon the Burner took place after that. We know that one built ships and tried to go west. The other one, his dad died and killed and burned him.
But he's basically saying like it wasn't them because that was too long ago.
Yes.
John says he
knows.
He said thousands of years
because we know when Bale. They know when Bale was king.
So I guess to your point, if you're saying he's king beyond the wall, he has to be after Brandon the Builder, or else there's no wall.
Right. So they have a time period of when Bale was king beyond the wall.
I just wonder, like, how much was maybe Bran knows this story. Bran Stark might know this story.
This would have came around at some point. I feel like even just the death, maybe they don't talk about,
Well, they don't even give the son a name. That was the big thing.
Yeah, they just say this.
We don't even know we don't even know who he was. So
what's the point of the story though? Like, why does he just one sentence? Why does Egret tell him this story? Like, the point is we're the same. We've got the same blood. Your Starks are wildlings is the point of the story, right?
I don't understand her point that she has the same, like she's a wildling, but like she doesn't have Bale blood.
Yeah, like how does she come from Bale blood? John came from Bale blood. How did you come from Bale blood? You could be a fucking peasant, right? It's not like everybody in Westeros came from Robert blood. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I kind of get what she's saying there, but that was maybe not the best. Like she could have said like you're part wildling, just like me.
Well, maybe all the
not that we
wildlings
both have
consider
Bale blood.
themselves siblings, kind of thing, right? Didn't he say are you looking for your brothers?
Well, he asked if you're kin, and she said no more than you are, and that's where the story came from, right? So that's kind of like where the point is, yeah. But yeah.
All right, so Corn and Dawn make it up. I think Dawn's another name.
Corn and Dawn. No, Dawn is like the sun. Corn and Dawn arrive together.
Dawn and Corn arrive together.
Would Dawn be capitalized?
It's the beginning of the sentence.
So.
Dawn and Corn arrive together.
I thought it was a name. Sorry.
There you go.
Jackpot.
So what happens to like what Jeff was saying earlier is they come to where Stone Snake and John started to the actual climb. They got the rope out, right? They go to there, and then they basically walk around this boulder that John and that Stone Snake didn't walk around, and they keep going on the not easy path, but easier path until they get to a spot that John and Stone Snake can come down and meet them somewhere.
Before we get too far, she does even admit, she's like, a bard's truth is different than yours or mine. So like she is saying like, yeah, this story is kind of bullshit, I'm sure, but I mean, could be true.
It's just like it's like Pie Pre in the House of the Undying. Like, some of it might be true, some of it's gonna be total BS. So never, some things are never.
Anyway, they show up. Yeah. Corn isn't like visibly mad, but I think he's kind of mad that they have a captive, right?
Well, hold on. Don't run past Ghost being a good boy and running up and see John. Like
it freaks out
as soon as Ghost.
Egret's mesmerized.
Yeah, because they're playing a little rough. He's pulling on. He's a fucking massive wolf pulling on John's arm, and John's like laughing about it.
Which is kind of wildling-ish, right?
And she might have seen a direwolf before too.
Yeah, because they're not supposed to be like not around.
They're not south of
we don't know if they're domesticated. Yeah.
This is kind of like a wildling behavior from John, right?
Yeah, I mean, playing with a direwolf
leads a little credence to her story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of even more to the part of, like, once they leave her, she's like, hey, you can come with us, Mance will take you. And I think him playing with the wolf played into that a little bit more than even, like, the Bale of the Bard story. Like,
fair enough.
So, Corrin's like, killer, like, we don't have time for this. Dalbridge moves to do it, and John stops him, and is like, she's my prisoner, whatever. Good for you, John.
Ned.
And they leave him.
So hold on. So one thing here is...
He did, I guess, it's his sentence to pass type thing.
One thing here is when Corrin comes up, he's like, do you know who I am? And she says, you're Corrin Halfhand.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, supposed to be like, oh, he's famous. But earlier, when John makes her yield, the first thing Stone Snake says is, Corrin didn't say anything about.
Yeah, true.
So like she knows Corrin's like down. If she's ever heard this name before, she knows that he's coming. And when she shows up, it's like, oh, there's the guy with half a hand. Yeah, I know who you are. You know, so I get the point of it, but I don't know. I think they could have just not mentioned Corrin up on the mountain and made it a little more badass. But yeah, I get the point. And he's like, what would you do? What would it earn me if I yielded to the wildlings? And she says, a slower death than elsewise, or something like that. Which is just kind of like, yeah, it's not how we do it up north of the wall. That's why I jumped on the chance as soon as this guy gave it to me.
Yeah, they leave John to do the deed, right?
They leave him, just them two. Egret's like, hey, you don't have to do this. Like, come with me. Mance will take you in. It'll be great. And he's like, they're my brothers too.
Yeah, it's like, I know secret ways away. Those crows would never find us. And he's like, I'm a crow. Like, what do you mean? Like, those crows? I'm one of them.
But then this is where she's like, burn me after so I don't come back.
Yeah, and she knows she's going to get beheaded, and she still says, burn me after. Which is why I disagree.
I disagree, too.
I think it's more of like I don't know if a headless thing being headless would stop the others. I just thought it was more of like I don't really want to get eaten by wolves. I'd rather
we also don't know. We don't know enough about it.
Yeah, we don't.
I didn't take it that way. Then my bad.
She does, like, when he says no, I can't. She does just kind of say, okay, whatever. But you know what I mean?
I mean, does she really care? Like, at that point, you're dead.
I don't disagree with you. I don't really care what happens to my body when I die either. But I know there's people out there that do, and probably would rather have it burned than eat my shadow.
Okay, right? No, that's what it was. She said, "I'll get eaten." Is pretty much what she says.
Well, she's like, "Yeah, I don't want to be eaten. Can you burn me after?"
No,
like,
she says, "Okay." He said,
"Worst places to end." Yeah. Then
I mean,
gotcha.
Like it's weird, I guess. Like she has this conflicting thing where she doesn't want to come back as one of them, right? But she also knows that a shadow cat or a panther or whatever it is going to eat her.
Yeah, probably.
So it's strange, but I mean, she's obviously just doesn't want to be a zombie, right? Like,
yep. All right, take us through the last part, Kyle.
And then John folds.
Yeah, so pretty much what Jeff just said. He goes to do it. He's about to do it. Gets very close to doing it. He's about to do it. One cut, all his weight behind it, and here he goes. And then he just says, go.
Do you have any thoughts on why he says go? I have a thought on why he says go.
Can you share it, or is it a spoiler?
I can share it. He says, I am my father's son, right? And then like the one thing that we know about Ned there is Ned says you have to be able to look the person in the eye and kill him, right? Like the whole the man who's in the sweat and steal the sword. And I think he can't. That's the whole point of that, right? I think he's like, am I Ned's son? And then he actually thinks about it. He's like, the whole point of that is don't kill somebody if they don't deserve it. He's like, this girl doesn't deserve it.
But they already killed 2 people.
I think he's saying, I am Ned's son. Ned wouldn't do this. Ned wouldn't kill an innocent person just because she had to die. But that's kind of how I see this going. That's the whole point of it. Am I his son? Am I his son? Like, Ned's yes, son? I am. I'm gonna do the right thing.
Wasn't that an old prediction?
I can see that. I can see that conflict being within him.
Maybe,
but I don't think Ygritte falls into that category of. Like, she would have blown the horn. She just admitted to, like...
But at this point...
they would have killed Corin.
Simple question. Would Ned kill him here? You think so?
Yeah, if he had a mission to do, absolutely.
I don't know. I think it would be a tough decision even for Ned.
Why? She's a warrior. She's gonna...
She doesn't have a horn on her. What's she immediately gonna do? Like, by the time she does anything...
Run back to camp.
And say, yes, there's wildlings in these mountains, or there's Northmen in these mountains.
She literally just told him she can get back there faster than them.
Yeah, she can get there faster than them, but and yes, the only thing they lose there is the element of surprise. They still don't know where they are, right? It's not like John's going to sit here and wait for her to go and be like, oh, John's
right here. Coming this direction.
They have the numbers to send out every direction.
All they know, like, I get that John, gave away his name and stuff, but, he didn't say there's 300 of us as the Fist of the First Men. All that she knows is there's 5 wildlings in the Skirling Pass right now.
5
and again,
crows.
Or not wildlings, 5 crows.
5 crows. Yeah. Watch.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's enough. Like, she takes that back, and they're like, all right, let's send out 10 more search parties, and let's see what we come across. Like,
maybe I'm overthinking this.
Right away. This is kind of this is what I kind of think of. Right now is like the movie Lone Survivor, right? They send in 4 Navy SEALs into the mountains of wherever they were to make the snipe, right? Okay. And the little kid, this is the scenario. The kid is like a 16-year-old kid. And they're like, we're not going to kill him. He's a 16-year-old kid. We're not doing it. What's he do? He immediately runs down to the guys. They get surrounded, and they get attacked. That's exactly what would happen.
I don't think it's as immediate.
That's exactly what would happen.
She's not on a street with people a block away from her. She
has
to go
she already mountains. Told you. They already told you that they have a better way. They know better ways to do it. So whatever way you're traveling, they're traveling faster. At some point, they're getting you.
I'm conceding that she's going to let you know they're there, but it's not the same as Lone Survivor. We're like, oh, they're right there. She's not going to know where they are. They know there's 5 people in the
we don't
mountains.
Know how far away they are. They don't know how far away.
I don't even think that matters. I think they say, hey, they were coming over this hill right over here. We know the fucking main path that way. They're coming that main path.
Kyle, do you behead her here? If you're John.
I already said I don't know that I could fucking even stab the first guy personally. Like, stabbing somebody seems so gruesome. Like, I
shut up. That's not the answer.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is so I have a hard time answering these questions because I can't put myself in that frame of mind.
The answer is nobody kills her here because it's wrong, and everybody knows it's wrong because
It's not wrong.
She did
it's
nothing.
Not wrong. Yes, she is. She's your enemy. Like, you're a soldier. You have a mission. You are trying to successfully do your mission. She's a big proponent to you not successfully doing your mission.
That's actually my prediction, is that she fucks up their mission. So
and I'm not saying that's a bad prediction. I'm not saying that that's not a thing John's predicting here.
Like, you saying she's done nothing wrong, they are the enemy, Nelson. She's the enemy. Like, everything that the wildlings have done to the crows in all of time, she is a part of. Like, sure, she didn't do it, but you are associated with that group.
I'm afraid of the answer.
So you are an enemy.
Answer I'm about to get, but Jeff, if you're John here, you think you can go through with this?
I'm not in the situation, so I don't know.
I know, but come on, you know what
it depends if you, how much of a soldier do you think you are, and how much.
That's a fair way to put it.
I truly believe it's if you're a soldier and you know you have this mission and you have orders, any soldier is doing it.
It had to be done.
It's
everybody else in the party was about to do it.
I'm not saying I do it on Call of Duty in a heartbeat.
What's fucked up is I just read this, and again I've said this a few times, and I don't want to go too much on a tangent. We've gone longer than I thought, but I've read this book about it's called Ordinary Men. It's about just basically normal people from Germany. Yeah, who from Germany who were not Nazis. They were not like raised under the Nazi regime, and they were basically imported, like drafted in to a really bad spot where they were forced to do horrible shit. And none of them were like super Nazis, none of them hated Jews. And they were kind of all doing it because of the stuff Jeff's saying, like, oh, it's our duty. Like, this is what we're told to do. Like, we don't ask questions. Like, everybody else is doing it. Like, it's what anybody else on my team would do this if they were in my shoes. So I have to do this. And it's like, I don't know. I get what you're saying. And I'm not saying that's like that most people wouldn't. I would hope that if I was John, I would do what John did. I hope I would. And I get what you're saying. I don't know if I can honestly say I would, but I hope I would be able to do what John did.
But honestly, like, all right, so let me just go back really quick. What waits beyond the pass? We don't even know how far the pass is.
They're in the pass.
To where they are right now.
Yeah, but how much further? You're saying how much further? Gotcha.
How much further do they have to go? And she says the free folk. Like, so it could be 100 yards, it could be a mile, it could be 50 miles. I don't really know.
Maybe John knows.
But they're there.
Maybe John knows that it's 50 miles. Or 25 miles. And she has to go a long fucking way. And they're going to make distance before she can tell anything about them.
But they're still going on. They're not going back. They're going forward. They're going closer to them.
I mean, she's already out here on watch. So, which makes me think that, again, it could be others, probably others.
No,
but Mance might already
closer?
think that there's night watchmen out here. So, what does her going back and saying there's night watchmen out here really buy them if he already thinks there's night watchmen out here? Nothing.
If he killed Egret, what's their next move to continue on?
Yeah,
closer to them.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So Corin and them are already continuing on. They left him go.
Yep.
Right. He lets Egret go. Is he running the Corin and saying, "All right, we got to turn around"? Like she's gonna go alert them that we're here.
We'll find out next chapter.
It's a stealth mission. I guess we will. I just disagree with you. Like she's an enemy soldier. Like she's the enemy.
That's a wrong take, man.
Like I think he failed. I think John failed as a Night's Watchman here.
For sure. And like I said, that's my prediction, is that this is going to bite him, and that this might be where he learns that there's times that things that must be done that aren't the right thing, per se.
I get what you're saying, and I think most people would do that. And one person who wouldn't do that...
I don't think most people would, but I think most people that were trained for war and to kill people might do it.
I think one person who was trained for war, who wouldn't, is Ned, right? Like everything we saw from Ned is Ned does the right thing.
I disagree with you. Dude, you're acting like she's a civilian that didn't do anything. She is the enemy.
He's putting his own men at risk to save one lady. Ned would never do that.
Ned put everything at risk to save Joffrey's life. He told Cersei everything in book 1 to save Joffrey's life. He should have just fucking killed them all. That's what fucking Corin Halfhand would do. That's what any soldier would do. Ned tells Cersei.
No, that's different. They weren't at war. They weren't at war.
That's not.
They weren't at war. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. They weren't at war.
What does anybody think? As soon as Kyle read that chapter, he's like, "This is not going to be good."
What do you? Okay.
Everybody knew that was a bad fucking thing for Ned to tell Cersei. Ned does it anyway.
Sure, but they weren't at war. They weren't just chopping heads off.
Bad things are immediately going to happen because of that.
I completely disagree.
And he does it anyway. John knows bad things could immediately happen after this, and he does it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Is all I'm saying.
It's not the right thing to do. I completely disagree with you.
I think it's a John Ned thing.
You can speak in your ultimatum that it's the right thing to do, and I just completely disagree with you.
It might be the right moral decision, Jeff.
But it's not, because they're at war.
Well, listen. Might be the right moral decision. Doesn't make it the smart decision. Doesn't make it the right decision in the situation.
I still disagree.
I don't even know if they're at war.
They are. Come on. They're at war since the beginning of the wall. Since they put the wall up, the wildlings, and there's never been peace between wildlings and fucking crows.
Craster.
Stop. One fucking guy.
Jeff, to your point, he's putting 4 of his own brothers at risk by letting this girl go.
Yeah.
Ned, I don't think would do that.
Agreed.
I don't know if he's putting them at any more risk.
He is, 100%.
Why?
Because she's going to alert them that they're there.
How many more ways do I have to say it? Like, they're not going back to the Fist of the First Men right away. They're moving forward, closer to them. So the moment they continue on to the past, through the past, to see actually how many free folk there are, because they're not going to just take her word that there's hundreds of hundreds. So they're going to keep going closer. So she beats them back.
Yep.
Alerts them. Now they send out all the parties.
They just saw a watch party. There's already watch parties out here.
Yeah, but they didn't get caught.
There's already watch parties looking for people.
Yeah, and that's her job
Sure,
is to
but
warn.
they haven't got caught yet.
Mance might already think there's Night's Watchman here, which is why he has watch parties. So
Sure.
her saying, "Hey, there's Night's Watchman here," Mance might be like, "Yeah, I fucking knew that."
Oh my God. No, he's gonna say, where are they? And she's gonna say they're over here coming from this direction, and they're gonna go send a fucking army up there or a group of people up there to ambush them. Awful, Nelson. Nelson, this is the worst take you've had on this podcast. 100%.
No, stop. This is where it totally gets different into it matters like how far is she from them? If John knows that like they're fucking far from them,
But
they're
again,
not out of the Skirling Pass, she has at least 20 miles to go on foot.
but they're going in the same direction. They're not going opposite directions from this point.
I don't know.
They're not, Nelson.
We'll have to
you know
agree,
that.
disagree. We'll have to agree, disagree. No, I know what you're saying. Nothing you said is wrong. I don't think.
It's like you set up tripwires around your camp with cans on them, right? Right? You ready to listen? Right? Because you think something is out there, you hear the tripwire go off. Now you know something is out there, and you can prepare for it, right?
Yeah, but it's not like these five guys' plan was to kill everyone in the Night's Watch. Like your point, you're saying
In the
like yes,
wildlings.
yeah, in the wildlings.
And
Yeah,
the
it's not
free
like you're saying like yes, if someone's about to come in and invade you, then yeah, you'd want to know.
Doesn't
before a
even
huge
matter if
army
it's
rushes
invade.
in.
It's still five people that are
I'm
coming
going to
that
say
shouldn't
it
be
one
here.
last time in the easiest way I can. They are on a stealth mission. Egret completely, the moment she survives, ends the stealth mission. It's no longer a stealth mission. It becomes a you
Yes.
versus them mission. And and your stealth mission is over. And that's all it is.
I like even in today's day and age, I feel like this is a war crime. Like you don't just kill people in cold blood. That's always a war crime, right? Isn't that like against the Geneva Convention or no?
You don't just let them go.
Exactly. So you would keep them captive, right? But Corin says we can't do that. So John's in an ultimatum: commit a fucking war crime or break an order.
How many war crimes do you think happen in every war?
That's not a fucking excuse. I'm saying the right thing to do is not to commit a war crime and disobey the commander that told you to commit a war crime.
But then again, he could have killed her before he
You're
asked her if
saying
she
in
wanted to
in
yield, and it
today's
wouldn't have
day
been a
and
war
age,
crime.
Is it better to commit a war crime or to obey an officer who tells you to commit a war crime?
All right.
This goes to a few good men.
Answer this question. They jump down from the rock. It's modern day times. They go pop, pop, shoot them. Person wakes her up from sleep, shoots that person too. That's not a war crime.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The right thing to do would have been
I
kill her
don't care.
then.
That ship has sailed. That ship has sailed.
Well, you just brought up that ship. What do you mean?
That's not what I brought up. I didn't bring that up. You brought that up.
She's no longer an immediate threat, is what Nelson is saying.
Is that a war crime?
It's not a war crime if it's in the act, but it's not in the act anymore, and I don't care. Like that's gone. That's not what we're
It's
talking
such a
about.
gray area, and I also don't think that they have war crimes like that back here because they're like raping and pillaging villages.
Let's
so like,
hold on. I think the better example is the thing that I just brought up. A Few Good Men in that movie, who like the people on
Dude,
trial.
that's not even close.
What are you talking about? They on the order.
Go ahead.
In that movie, Jack Nicholson is the Corin here, and the two people on trial are Jon Snow. He ordered them to kill somebody in cold blood. They fucking did it.
In modern times.
They fucking did
In
it,
modern
and they
times.
got arrested for it.
they have the Geneva Conventions back here. Yeah.
I don't think they were ordered to kill him. They were ordered to
And
teach
and
him a
had,
lesson.
like, yeah,
not
he had
kill him.
some like.
He ended up
Here's the
dying.
other side of this, right? They killed this girl. No one knows.
John knows, and he can't sleep at night.
Well, then he jumps off the mountain because he's so distraught and scene.
I think all the fans know where we stand on this one. I'm sure.
I
And it'll
think he's
continue.
putting them all at risk for this.
And I don't disagree. He is definitely putting them all at risk. I'm not
What do you
saying
mean you
he's
don't
not-
disagree? You literally just spent the last 10 minutes disagreeing.
I think the right thing to do is put him at risk here.
You said, what's it matter if she gets there first? What's it matter if she gets back
The
to
right
camp?
thing to do is put him at risk.
Signing off. Bye, Kyle.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see everybody in the spoiler section. See Kyle in the next one.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
See you later, Kyle. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you on the next one for Sansa something. Now, on to the spoiler section for John 6. Boys, what are your hot takes?
All right. So, first thing, our first argument is basically the fight or flight argument.
I don't know what that means.
You're put in a situation where you're either fighting or flighting. You know, like your reaction time.
You're saying for John killing her?
No. The first one, like you're just like, it's going to take you longer to defend yourself against a girl.
Yes.
Like I don't think in a true life-threatening situation, like you have a fight or flight response.
When we were all, as soon as we stopped recording, I had said something like, I'm sure the girl factors played into this too, where it would be harder for me in John's situation here to kill Egret as a girl.
Yeah.
It might be easier. It might be easier for me to do what you guys are saying, be the soldier, do your orders if it's a man. I'm not denying that doesn't take a play on what I'm saying.
I think another thing is, I think you like Egret. I think you like the character of Egret, so you don't want to kill Egret.
I
think definitely is playing a role.
I definitely like Egret, but I don't think that's as big of a factor. I think it's more of like it's one of the things where I hope I wouldn't do this. I would hope I did what John did, but I'm not sure. And also, like the whole
dude, you're not putting yourself in a soldier's just, have you seen Lone Survivor? No?
I would hope that there's times where I disobey orders if I thought that what the orders were wrong. And I know what you're saying, where it's not easy to do that. And I read a whole book on saying, like, look how fucked up these people got just because of orders when they were ordinary men. So I get it. I know it's not fucking easy. I would just hope that I'm one of the few that it does what John does.
Yeah, but that puts everybody else at risk. Like, that puts your whole group, your whole company, like... Okay, you disobeyed your order because of something you morally did, and you just put everybody else in your group at risk to die.
I'd put the blame on the commander who gave me the order. It's his fault.
Bullshit.
He should have given me Corin should have kept her.
This is exactly what you said. The five person on the track. This is the trolley. You have 5 people in your crow group, or you have one girl. Who are you choosing?
You're right. I mean, you should have said that with Kyle, because that was.
Well, I just thought about it now.
You're right. Kyle brought that up, but I mean, it's a good thought. I mean, you're right. It's very similar to that experiment.
So what's morally right now?
My problem
is morally right now. Your 5 brothers that you trained and are on a mission with.
Listen, it's slightly different because it's not like when you pull the switch and let her go, they're dead. Right, they do end up dying. We know that. But.
You know that, like that's the big and obviously you couldn't just say that.
Well, the problem is too the other thing that the other.
But that's why. But that's exactly why.
So let's talk about what actually happened before. Well, I'm sure we're gonna circle back to this argument, but everybody's heard us listen to this for 20 minutes now. So let's circle back to it.
You're just wrong. Like if you wanted to fight,
we're gonna circle back to it, Jeff. Tell me I'm wrong later. So. What happens here is Egret, she does go and tell people, but she doesn't go the whole way back. She goes to a larger headquarters of Rangers, right? She goes to Rattleshirt, who has 14 people with him. So it seems more like Rattleshirt, what probably happened was Rattleshirt was sent out with 30 or 40 people, and he sent out groups of 3. And he kept 10 or 15 near him. And then Egret goes back to him, says, I know these people are, and they're not wherever Man says, they're way closer, which is why this is really bad. And again, I couldn't say this with Kyle, but it does end up being really bad for John. I still think John does the right thing here. And again, I still think it's because of
you're Ned's. An idiot. You're an idiot.
So you honestly don't think Ned would do this?
You killed... No, because he knows that letting her go endangers Corin and everybody else.
And I know you and Kyle both said you weren't on the whole, women should be treated differently. And I get it. But I don't think Ned would have the same viewpoint. Right, Ned would have a way harder time killing a woman. All right,
so this is honestly what I would rationalize Ned doing, because I don't think Ned would endanger the mission. I honestly think he would kind of do what John did in the show: tie her up, gag her up, and leave her there next to the fire, and see if all right, if she survives, she survives. But
no, she runs away. What happens in the show is she literally runs away, and he chases her.
I'm just saying, John tied her up. Actually, though, I think Ned ties up her feet, ties up her hands, gags her up, leaves her by the fire so she doesn't die of hypothermia.
No, it's totally different. It's totally different in the show. Corin doesn't.
My point was not that he does what John does, because I don't think Ned's not going to bring John along. Again, this is a hypothetical. What would Ned do? So there's no proof behind this at all. I'm saying he's not going to endanger his men, first and foremost. Maybe he doesn't want to kill her, but he's not going to let her run back right away to wherever she would go. So I think he would tie her up and leave her by this fire and continue on.
That I agree. And I think that's probably the best thing. That's probably more what I would do than what John does here. If I'm being honest, I think that's probably what I would do.
The only reason I brought up the show was because he actually tied her up. That's all I was saying.
The other thing I want to say is John goes next chapter. I don't think you remember this. Next time John talks to Corin, do you remember what happens?
I'm sure he says she slipped away. Or
no, John says I couldn't do it. he's like, all right. But he wasn't mad. He's like, I told you it needed to be done. I didn't tell you to kill her. He literally says, I didn't order you to kill her. I told you it needed to be done. And the whole point was I wanted to learn about you. And I know more about you now than I did yesterday.
Sure.
My point here is even Corran doesn't think her being dead is super critical. He doesn't get mad at John. He doesn't say you should have done that. You fucked up. He says, I just wanted to learn about you. Honestly, I didn't really think you were going to kill her. Which I think leads some credence to my point. Is like, yes, it's an order. Like Corran didn't order him kill her. He says, do what needs to be done.
You didn't you tell me that you feel like John needed to become a part of the Wildlings? Like Corran's whole plan was for John always to be a Wildling.
We're 100% going to get into that.
So that goes against what you said. Like
again,
the Corran's on a suicide mission anyway. Then so it doesn't matter.
Right. Before I'm sure we're going to come back to this conversation when I get onto some of that stuff. But let's talk about some of the lighter spoilers first. Did you have any that don't relate to this conversation? That's not going to get us right back on the same thing.
I want to say that Kyle completely let you down and didn't think of Bran at all being in the crypts.
I mean, he pulled up a parallel of Theon that I really wasn't even thinking of, though.
The horn thing?
The horn thing.
Whatever. It's not a big deal.
There's a lot of parallels between the two chapters. Bran with the climbing, the horn thing. I didn't even think about that.
I meant more or less like the thought that if Kyle had the shot to read these chapters in succession without a week separation, that he would pick up on Bran being in the crypts. And he didn't even sniff it.
Yeah, so for the fans, we read this literally like 2 days apart, right? Like we recorded Monday, today's Wednesday. So he sat on this for 2 days. And I know, and he had it read last night because we were thinking there might be a chance we record last night. So he read this back-to-back days. And yeah, and you're right, he didn't get it. I was surprised. I thought he was going to, because there was a point where after he read the quote, he went back, like while we were recording, he was rereading something. And I thought that's what he was going to bring up, but he didn't. One thing I want to say is there's a quote that you even brought note to in the fucking non-spoiler section. Dawn and Corran arrived together.
I thought Dawn was a fucking person.
I got you, but like I mentioned this in the fifth one. I went on this whole thing like Corran is fucking Arthur Dane or he's Gerald Hightower, and like I went on this whole thing. I'm not gonna redo it because I honestly don't remember it all. And I didn't.
So John 5, you said Corran was Arthur Dane.
I was saying Corran was. I think the main theory is Corran's Gerald Hightower, who's the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. He's one of the ones with Arthur Dane at that time. And
it'd be cooler if he was. Well, then is Dawn, the Squire?
Squire Dalbridge is he?
Is he Arthur Dane?
So Squire Dalbridge, Evan, and Stone Snake all die. I mean, and Corran dies, right? But so basically, what happens after this is they start getting tracked immediately next chapter by Rattleshirt. So
I can't wait for Kyle to read that chapter. I can't.
Let's go into the next spoiler. Who does John kill? Do you know who John kills here? We know his name. I'll give you a hint. He's a character in the show who's never alive in the books besides in this chapter. But he's alive in the show for a decent amount, a wildling.
The wildling? The only one I'm thinking of is the guy that is the hawk guy.
Yes, exactly. This is Arel. So this is the warg. Next John chapter starts with John warging. He's sleeping. He's having like a ghost dream. Yeah. Ghost sees all the wildlings, all of them, like hundreds of thousands. He knows where they're at. So like to the point of, oh, this was a stealth mission. Again, this was something I couldn't see. You're like, this is a stealth mission. You ruined everything. I was like, literally Ghost gets all the information at the very beginning of the next chapter. He says where they're at.
That doesn't change that it was still a stealth mission.
100%. But Ghost gets all the information, and then Arel, an eagle, attacks and claws the fuck out of Ghost. Really fucks him up, like a big eagle or hawk or something. And John wakes up from it. And he's like, Ghost. And he tells Corran, and Corran's like, this might be actually... I think this is the next John chapter. That's how it starts. Then they talk about...
it's got to be soon, because they're going to be tracked and changed.
I'm just thinking, I think that him talking to Corran about Egret happens before that, but I'm not sure. Like, there's only 2 more John chapters in this book, and all this shit happens in these. So at some point that happens. Basically, John tells Corran, and Corran's like, you're a fucking warg. He doesn't say it out loud, but he's like, that's all legit. All that information you just said. Like, John thinks it's a dream. Mm-hmm. And Corran's like, we got to go find Ghost now. Like, ASAP. And that's all real. We got to get him and get the fuck out. Mm. So, like, Corran is, like, in on it. I don't know. It just like it's kind of badass what happens. Like they accomplish their mission. So I guess this is a good point for me to get.
Do they accomplish their mission?
Well, here's where I'll get into the whole plan of Corrin. And again, this isn't a me. This is a Preston Jacobs. I'll link.
Wasn't they're supposed to go back to the old bear and tell them what they see though? Like they don't get back.
So
to
the
them.
mission, like I mentioned it in the not spoil. The mission is find out what they're searching for. Corrin has discovered that they're searching for something in the Frostfangs. Find out what they're searching for. That's kind of the mission.
But they don't.
So this is a good segue into the Preston Jacobs thing.
Until John gets into the tent with Mance Rayder.
Even then, like I don't even know how it takes a while for John to figure out that there's a horn they're looking after. So let's go into the Preston Jacobs theory, right? Which is I'll link them in the Discord. I'm sure we're not gonna. I feel like I go too much into Preston sometimes, so I'm just gonna give it the cover and I'll link the video.
Yeah, so let them go watch it if they want to.
So the thing here is that basically Corrin knew, like you said earlier, Corrin had some suspicion at the beginning that the goal is this guy's a fucking Stark, because in the first John chapter, the last John chapter when he met Corrin, he knows who Corrin is because he's a legendary ranger, but Corrin also knows who he is, like right away, and it's kind of weird. Then he picks John for the ranging. Now we get here. We even talked about it. You admitted it was kind of weird that Corrin doesn't know how many wildlings are on a normal watch party, so he does that, sends John up. Almost like so that I think what
John
Preston,
volunteers to be fair, but
I think what Preston suggests there is that by saying the wrong number of people, Corrin instinctively hopes that there's going to be a captive that John gets to talk to.
That's super instinction.
It's a stretch. again, and it's been a while since I've seen the Preston Jacob video, but I know he points out the fact that Corrin purposely gives the wrong number here. Yeah, for some reason. Again, you can watch it to find out. Next thing is he even admits here, Ghost. He's like, oh, Ghost can't go with you. His fur would be too easily seen by night. Like, it seems like in the last chapter, the whole reason he wants John to come is so that he brings Ghost. Right? He's like, oh, you have that wolf. Make sure you get your wolf ready. Bring your wolf with you. And now we find out that the wolf is like pretty detrimental. The Night's Watch literally wear all black so that they're disguised in the nighttime and they can't be seen. And he brought a shining white wolf that gets attacked. And again, we'll get into this more in the next chapter. I'll watch those Preston Jacobs videos. I haven't watched them before this one, but I'll watch them again before next chapter. Ghost gets attacked by Arel near where the wildlings are. And to your point, what Corrin should do at that point is say, hey, time to get the fuck out of here. They know we're here. We got to go. But what's he do? He's like, we got to go get Ghost. And they keep going.
Yeah,
to save Ghost.
Stupid.
Corrin risks everyone's life. Like you're saying, John gets everyone killed. And I'm not saying John doesn't have an impact.
John did, but
Corrin says we got to go after Ghost. Once they get Ghost, that's when they turn around and they start losing people. He's like, Squire Dahlbridge, you got to stay here. Evan, you got to stay here. Stone Snake, you got to stay here. Or like Stone Snake, you got to go back to Man. I think one of them might go back to Gior, and like he might make it. I don't remember what happens. He sends one of them back to Gior, but like. Corrin is the reason these people die, not John. Again, I'm not saying what John does here is the right thing.
They were dead anyway.
They could have turned back and been totally safe at the point that...
Yeah, but that was never the point. But if Ghost wasn't a warg and they couldn't get an info in that way, they would have kept going until they found it themselves. So,
but at the moment John wakes up and tells Corrin all this information, they don't know what they're searching for, but they basically know everything, and they know that
they could turn away right there
and save everybody but Ghost,
and maybe save everybody. We don't know where.
We don't know, but have a way better chance of saving everybody but Ghost. They walk. So the thing is, Arel's Raven is like Arel, who becomes the Raven because John has already killed him. He is the Raven. He's tracking from the time he kills Ghost. He's tracking Ghost from the time
Orel dies.
No,
he doesn't kill Ghost.
From the time he attacks Ghost, he's tracking Ghost. You said kill. Sorry. From the time he attacks Ghost, he's tracking Ghost. I'm pretty sure in the books, there's no sight of the eagle before they go and like. So John wakes up, says his dream. He's like, we got to go get him. As soon as they get Ghost, they're like, oh fuck, there's an eagle watching us. And from then on, they're fucked. They know they're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know that they're not fucked until they go save Ghost. So again, I'm not saying John does the right thing as a soldier here, But I'm disagreeing with you in the fact that what John does here is what 100% leads to getting him killed. I think Corrin going after Ghost is a way bigger problem. And Key admits here, Ghost basically lets them track us at nighttime. So, if Ghost isn't there when nighttime comes, they just travel 7 miles in a really weird direction. How the fuck's the Raven gonna know? They're hiding in a cave for a day. Night comes again. They know because during the daytime, everyone's wearing black. And during the nighttime, you got a fucking white wolf. You're literally never camouflaged because
that's the kind of the problem with bringing Ghost was like you can't have Ghost near you.
You're literally never camouflaged if Ghost is near you. If you're not camouflaged in the day, you're not camouflaged in the night. Exactly. So why does it seem like Ghost is like a main reason why he picks John? Why he goes after Ghost when Ghost gets hurt again? So again, watch the Preston Jacobs videos; they'll be in there. And again, I'm sure they probably lean into maybe some.
I think the point of why you have to go into it is because I haven't watched it, so like I don't know what you're saying. Like I don't know why Ghost would need to be there.
Well, the whole point is, I think the general gist is the whole thing is Corrin trying to set up. As soon as he sees John and sees that he's from Winterfell, he knows that he's. I think Corrin knows the Bael the Bard story, knows that he's sympathetic to the wildlings. Basically says, I can get this guy on the wildling side, and again, not be friends with the wildlings, not let them through the wall. Like he is not planning where John's story goes, but he's like, I can get John onto the wildling side, and he's my ticket as an inside man.
I don't think John at this point is sympathetic to the wildlings. So
no, he's not.
I think he has a pretty conscious, empathetic heart.
This is the first building block.
Yeah,
the Bael the Bard story is the first building block, and like again, I got not hate, but Emma commented me on in the Discord. I said during the Dany story, when we go or in the Dany chapter, when we go to the House of the Undying, there's like the blue flower. It's a chink in the wall of ice, right? People say, "Oh, that's John because Lyanna likes blue flowers." I said, "Yes, that's John," but there's another theory that it's John because the blue flower is the winter rose, and that symbolizes that Starks and wildlings are the same.
There's a wildling in the wall.
That Starks and wildlings are the same. Oh yeah, the same. Or that there's a wild. Sure,
if there's a wildling on the wall.
And again, what does John do? The chink in the wall of ice lets all the wildlings through.
Yeah.
Right. So again, all I was saying was you don't need John to be Lyanna's kid to make that prophecy be about John. And Emma kind of said,
but that makes him a Stark though,
for sure. And he is a Stark either way. I mean, either way you look at it.
Yeah, I guess.
John's kid, Lyanna's kid.
Unless he's like the Dane's kid with Rhaegar, which wouldn't make any sense.
So let's be fair here. Again, you guys know I don't like the Lyanna thing, but I think if we're going for the whole, let's look at the R plus L equals J. I think there's a little hint to that here. There's no heir
in this chapter.
No male heir for the Starks. So a daughter has a son, and he becomes the Lord. Yeah. Could that be John's story? Could he be the son of Lyanna Stark? Again, we know Rickard had sons, but or you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just kind of want to ask you: do you think Bael the Bard is fiction or nonfiction?
The thing is, I think even if it's fiction, it's still true that Starks and wildlings are both first men, right? So I don't think it matters if it's true. I think the premise is true. Which is kind of why after Kyle was like, I think it's bullshit, I wanted to be like, what's the point though? The point is that Starks are wildlings.
Yeah, because I kind of think it's fiction.
Well, I think I would probably agree with you that it's probably I don't know. I bet you there's some truth to it. Like I bet you there was a king who invaded Winterfell at one time. Whether he impregnated a daughter who became the future Lord Stark, I don't know.
I mean, Mance has literally already done it, so we know it's possible.
Well, when Mance does it the second time, he goes as Abel.
Right.
Which is an anonym of Bael.
Yeah.
Anagram.
I don't think it's anagram.
What's the word?
I don't know what mixing letters up to make another.
Something like that.
I mean, I guess you couldn't. If you gave a name to the kid, it would now allow you to track it. Like they obviously have the history of the great families. Like that's a book. So if John really cared and he could get back to a library, he'd be able to track, all right, where's this Brandon, the daughterless? We know that's not his nickname, but all right, where is he? Where does it just become like
I
grandson
want it to be
type
true
thing.
because it'd be cool, but I think you're probably right that it doesn't really make sense that it's true, or else people would know about it. And I think again, it'd be really cool. So again, we know Bale the Bard is a real character because even Mormont told John about this person, so we know he's real. So again,
and it's probably true that he made it to Winterfell at one point or another,
and he maybe even fucked the daughter,
and he maybe slept with the daughter,
and maybe even she had a bastard that was
and
his.
maybe she had a kid. He probably never became the Lord of Winterfell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about that, but like maybe he never escaped, or maybe they never hid in the crypts.
They hid in the crypts for 9 months.
Maybe he just fucked her and left.
The big thing about the
she
crypts,
just had a bastard. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's what happened, and the dad was mad, and then never had another kid, so he's like, "Fuck it, the bastard can be heir."
Say like, all right, they're hiding in the crypts. Like, what are they eating for 9 months?
Yeah, they need somebody to be getting them food. Like, yeah, again, and what Egert says is and Kyle pointed out, a bard's truth isn't our truth. Like it's different. He's going to exaggerate, but
every good story.
And again, I think it's still the same. Regardless, you don't even need this story at all. The point is the same regardless. They both have Northmen blood. They're the same.
They were first men even before Bale.
And again, big line of that story is, oh, it's all in where you're standing, I guess. Right? Which again, I don't think it happens in that story, but I think in the show, like John uses that to be like, it doesn't like the wall. Like I think it's a different point. And Egert's just like,
John's like you were on the wrong side of the wall.
Or she's like, he's like, you're the wildlings. You've been raiding us. You're the wildlings. She's like, the wildlings are just the sad fucks who were on the wrong side of the wall when it went up.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're the same. It's just all from where you're standing. Like I think it happens differently in the show, but I think the same quote comes up. And and like I think that's what John realizes is like they're the fucking same as us. Like why the fuck
I think he does learn
a
lot from his relationship with Egret, and I'm kind of excited to reread it because I don't really remember it. But
I mean, I think this chapter is a huge like foreshadow for the rest of John's story. He becomes sympathetic for the wildlings. Whether I agree with you, he's not yet. But like this is kind of what he realizes is we're all the fucking same. We all the same enemy. We gotta
we'll just go back to it one more time. Like I'm not surprised John let her go. I think it's a mistake.
Then why?
Because it's in John. Because I agree with you that John's thinking this isn't right. She's my prisoner. She should be a prisoner type thing.
Yeah.
Do I think that's what he should have done for them to do their job the best? No. But I'm not surprised that he did it.
Yeah, doing your job the best isn't always what's the most important. Doing the right thing.
No, I mean it absolutely fucks him.
It fucks him. I'm not saying again. I'm not claiming it doesn't fuck him because it does, and it would be stupid if it doesn't. But yeah, I think we know where we stand on that. I only had one last thing. I mean, I feel like we talked about. Maybe I'll circle back and see if there's anything I missed. One last thing, totally kind of weird, unrelated. I never even thought about this till this chapter. And it's kind of why I brought up in the non-spoiler section that they got to crawl through 300 yards of this rock. For some reason, that reminded me of...
I wasn't really envisioning it that way. Like, I just figured they got to, like, a part where there was, like, a little bit of, like, a cliff walkway, and they just crawled to stay low.
That's what I thought, too, but then the fact that he says it was, like, a cleft in the rock, and that they had to crawl makes you think... And what that reminded me of, and I don't know why, was the Tyrion chapter, right? Tyrion is with Varys. He gets let out of, or Jaime lets him out of the cell. He climbs up this long ass ladder to the point where his arms are aching, and then he doesn't have to crawl because he's short as fuck. But I think in like the next Tyrion chapter, Shay's gonna be waiting in his room for him, and she says
she had to crawl,
and she says I had to crouch and Varys had to crawl. So I don't. Again, maybe just because I've recently listened to that Tyrion chapter, and I know that he eventually crawls through here to kill Tyrion. But John is crawling through this 300-yard narrow thing and jumps down and kills somebody, and then gets confronted with this girl who he ends up loving. Tyrion ends up climbing this ladder, crawling through this 300 thing, getting confronted with this girl he loves, and actually killing her, who he already loves, and then killing his father. Again, maybe there's no parallel. I don't know if this is something George intended. This is something that I, for some reason, saw a parallel in this time when I went.
So the one other thing that I think we talked about last time too was the Kinslayer. Like the Kinslayer thing gets mentioned here.
Yes. So I mean, this is one of the Theon parallels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Bale the Bard's son kills him, unknowing. Theon potentially kills one of his sons, unknowing, with this whole Miller's child thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Other than like where the rest of John and becoming a wildling story goes, which we don't need to really talk about because we'll
get there.
read about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I thought the spoiler section might be a little bit longer, but I guess we hashed a lot of it out with Kyle. It's kind of the argument about Egret, but
yeah.
But yeah, and again the Preston Jacob stuff, I love.
Dude, wait, I want to make a comment. Stupid as fuck. Jon just comes out and says, "I'm Jon Snow. I'm the son of Ned Stark." Like, what the fuck's he doing? Like, right when.
Again, I don't think.
Like, if you're gonna kill her, fine. Like, monologue and then kill her, but.
I think to the point where she's like, I'm a. So she's kind of being polite, right? She's like, he says something and she's like, I gave you my name, and that's when he says Jon Snow. It's not like
he could have said Jon. He just could have said Jon.
But it's not like he's like she's like, what's your name? Or like, who are you? Right? Maybe then you're more reserved because somebody's being direct. But she's like, hey, I told you who I was, and he's like, okay, here's who I am. It seems a little more open. But the other thing is, what I was gonna say is Jon. Is a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, he's a boy.
He's in the Night's
he was
Watch.
acting
He
the boy.
hasn't seen a woman. Literally, it's like what in camp. We used to go to camp.
Oh, for sure. He's got goggles on.
And the first girl you see.
I mean, let's just put it this way: like
you.
when you are at camp, you see like maybe a couple trainers, and maybe you're lucky enough to have a student manager. Regardless if the girl was even hot, like camp just makes him that much hotter. So like,
yeah, not having seen, and John even says I haven't seen a living person since we left the Frostfangs, except for these 5. And now he's a girl. He hasn't seen a girl. I mean, I guess he saw girls at Crasher's Keep, but I mean, come on, those are totally off limits. So, I mean, I see where John's coming from. The little camp goggles for John.
Yeah.
That's why he's giving her all this
We've all been there.
Hey, I'm important. I'm the son of a lord, okay? So, yeah.
You listen to me. All right, I'm good.
We'll see you guys in the next one. Sansa something, Sansa 4 or 5. I don't know. We'll know. We'll find out next
And
one.
now our watch has ended.
Bye-bye.